Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. I remember when that happened to Greg Biffle, and he said he felt like there was a rubber band choking him, and he was delirious in the car. Would you ever pull over if it was, I mean, were you feeling the physical aspects? Would a race car driver that we know so well ever pull over feeling that? Because he said he'd rather die than pull off the track.
I don't think any of us would. We'd probably, it's probably not smart. I think Bob and everybody they were mad at me that I didn't come back in and fix it right away, but that's just all of our nature. I mean, we're not going to, you just can't pull in and say, hey, I'm too hot. You know, I mean, that just. Yeah, it was a little bit of, it got my attention. I mean, I was doing the math. You know, I've been out here running 15 laps, and we've got like 100 and something to go. I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. So, you know, that's an interesting predicament to be in. And I can see how in years past there have been guys that have got out of cars and just said, hey, you know, there's some, you know, if they're getting gassed or they've got something wrong with a crush panel, you know, it's a serious situation. It's a lot of heat.
Other questions for Carl? Right here, Will has one.
Will Graves, Associated Press. Carl, is there any, you come in this weekend not atop the standings for the first time in, a couple of months. I mean, you haven't had, I think you had 237th place finishes in the last 4 weeks. Yeah. I mean, is there any, you think you view this as just sort of a bump in the road this happens during the course of a 36 race season, or is there any sense of, concern in the garage?
No, I mean, it's a little bit of a reality check for us because although it has felt really nice to be atop the standings, when the chase starts, we're not atop the standings. I mean, we don't have, 4 wins. We need 4 wins to be on top. And so I think it's in a way, it's good for us. It puts us, back on the offensive, and we can go out and test ourselves a little bit here these next 9 races. It's 9 races before the chase starts, right? So we essentially get a practice chase starting right now, and I'm curious to see how we can perform. If we can go back and climb back up to the top of the standings, and build a big point lead, I think that'll give us a lot more confidence going into the chase. So that's the way our team's looking at it. We're looking at it as an opportunity to kind of take a step back, look at the reality of the situation. That hey, we still have to beat these guys in the final 10 races, and hopefully it'll be a little practice run, and we can do it, It might give us more confidence going into the chase if we're able to do that.
This gentleman right here.
Carl, Ken Dillon with Steve with the Kokomo Tribune. You were in Indy yesterday for the announcement at IMS. You're talking about an inaugural race here. It's going to be the last nationwide and probably truck race at ORP. Are you looking forward to running those races? And what does it mean to win the last race at an event?
Well, NASCAR's official stance on the ORP situation is that they make their plans every year. So I have a feeling we'll be back at ORP, sometime, even if we race, even if it's in addition to racing at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. At least that's my hope. I understand NASCAR's position that the opportunity to go run these nationwide cars and the Grand Am cars at Indianapolis Motor Speedway is one that you can't pass up. I mean, that's a huge opportunity, and it'll be great for the young drivers and even for the guys who are veterans to maybe have 2 shots at a trophy at Indianapolis in one weekend. But it will make the Raceway Park race this year a little more special, knowing that we won't be there next year. But man, I really love racing at Raceway Park, and I have a feeling it won't be my last race there, even if even if it's a Silver Crown race or something like that in the future. I really like racing there.
Any other questions for Carl? Claire?
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. A lot of people did a lot of laps today, and I'm wondering what you sort of learned from just having that much time on a track, which y'all don't get to do all the time.
It is a little. I thought about that. We used to test a lot more, so this is it's kind of neat to go out there and test a little bit, and but for me, it's not about. It's just as much about the drivers and getting comfortable at the racetrack. I haven't driven a Cup car here for a long time since we tested. Maybe I think it might have been 2004, the end of 2004. So driving down to these corners. They're very treacherous corners. They don't look like it, but especially turn 3, it's really flat. It's deceivingly slippery. So the first lap I drove in there way over my head. It got my attention. And then the bumps down in 1 and 2, there's areas that have bumps, and to try to figure out how to get through that corner is difficult. So I think a lot of guys are out there, if they're being honest, they'd say that they're working on their driving. I think there's a lot of driving that the things that you can learn as a driver out here running more laps. So you'll see guys. I think you'll see some guys even make some long runs here this evening and see what happens too.
Back in the back, Rob has a question.
Rob Bromley, WKYT. Kevin Harvick described this as a bumpy racetrack this morning. Would you say it's a bumpy track?
I wouldn't call it a bumpy track. I'd say it's a track that has a lot of character, and the bumps are part of it. I like racetracks like this that, it's not just one groove sitting on the white line, single file racing. This is going to be a racetrack where you can chase a guy down, pressure him, get him to go through the bumps the wrong way and slide up the racetrack, and you can make moves. So the bumps are part of that, but if I only got one sentence to describe this track, I'd say it has a lot of character, and I really like it.
Go ahead, Mike.
Mike Muller, MikeMuller.net. Kyle Busch said he was worried about the bumps going into one, that you wouldn't want to get under somebody because you might bump into one.
Yeah.
Can you talk about going into one and getting under somebody or getting on the outside, or how would you deal with trying to pass somebody down in one?
Well, the last nationwide race, I worked on Joey Logano for laps down there, and I couldn't figure out a way to get around him. I had all sorts of options, but I couldn't get him. And Kyle's right that those bumps down there will make things a little bit interesting. You dive down in there under someone, the guy on the outside, he might want to take that into account, that car might not stick as well as the guy on the bottom wants to. And then turn 3 it's not based on bumps, but it kind of has the same feeling where you can get in there every once in a while, find a little grip with the nose, and the car can just slide sideways. So it's a tough racetrack, and I think you can for the same reason that's difficult for the guy on the inside. If you pressure the guy leading, he can make a mistake too. So I don't think the guy's going to be able to just sit in the lead and run away with it. I think somebody will be able to make something happen. I mean, we'll see what happens in the race, but it's not as simple of a track to drive as some of the ones we go to.
Brittany, right here, please.
Andy Lay again with Burning Rubber Radio. Carl, inaugural event at Kentucky tonight. If you take the checkered flag, are you going to the top of the stands?
I don't know if I'd make it to the top of the stands here. The fans are pretty wound up. That'd probably take a lot of energy. I'll try. I'll make a deal with you. I'll try to make it to the top of the grandstands if I win on Saturday night. That'll be a good effort. So we'll see what happens. I hope that's my biggest problem.
Carl, thanks a lot, and good luck this weekend at Kentucky Speedway.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Have fun. Don't eat too much chili.